What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. Happy to be with you as usual on a Tuesday evening talking some golf. Got a busy week on the sports calendar. Of course, March Madness getting kicked off tonight with a couple of the first four games. Just finished writing up UNC on scores and odds real quick here before the show. So Steve will be happy about that. Producer Steve talking about his UNC fandom. So hopefully they can get a win tonight. But we're here to talk some golf, and we've got the Valspar Championship this week, coming off a big Players Championship week and a Monday playoff. It was a fun tournament, and we'll take a quick look back at that one here. You've got myself, Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84, and Mr. Notorious, Derek Farnsworth alongside. And Noto, you just had to feel like when JJ Spawn had to sleep on that 3-hole playoff that it was probably not going to go well for him.
Yeah, I think the odds were minus 150 for Rory. And, I don't have access to a book here, but I would have hammered that if I did. It just felt like he definitely, 2 nights in a row, because he had the lead heading into Sunday too. That's a lot of nerves. And then Rory got to come out and he got to hit first. They changed the rule to where it's not a tee flip. It's just whoever finished first gets to hit the first tee shot. And obviously that's going to put a lot of pressure on Spawn, with Rory being one of the better drivers of the ball in the world. So yeah, a lot of pressure there, but man, he did bounce back really well on Sunday, JJ Spawn.
Yeah, I was kind of rooting for him there at the end. Didn't have any, major stake in the game at that point. Didn't have an outright ticket on either of them. Did agree with Noto that, the minus 150 odds on Rory seemed a little bit light, and that was the play there heading into the playoff. But it was nice to, see them coming down the wire there. Of course, the big rain delay on Sunday, kind of disappointing. They had to move all the tee times up. Like these tournaments where they start to spread out the tee times throughout the day, except they couldn't do that on Sunday with the storms coming in, unfortunately. But it was, pretty fun week of golf. Always nice at the Players. You get that scoring kind of holes that are available to make birdies, but yet still trouble if you're not finding the right spots, like we have talked about many times on the show. So what else did you get for takeaways from last week?
Yeah, I ended up having a really good week. Doug Gim was the only guy in my main lineup that didn't make the cut. The other 5 played pretty well, especially on Sunday. They all went really low, so I helped my main lineup. And then for Showdown, I ended up just fading all the cheap guys at the top. I kind of thought a lot of them would really struggle under the pressure, and that's exactly what we saw with Smalley and Straka and McGreevy and Yeager and Bud Colley. All those guys kind of went backwards. And then so fading those guys was kind of the key to winning Showdown. So it ended up being a good week for me. But our editor, Andy Means, had like a 10-man made cut parlay, and Gim was the only one.
Oh, man.
So he got both of us last week.
Yeah, Doug Gim taketh away a lot of times. I've been there. I'm a big Doug Gim fan, so I've been on that side of the ledger many times. But that's golf for you. We dust ourselves off and get back to this week. Michael Kim was the big downfall for me and in most of my lineups last week. The free square at 5,900 or whatever ridiculous price he was did end up bouncing back on Friday and barely missed the cut. Of course, we'll talk about him this week, but couldn't quite recover from a rough first round. He had Xander made the cut but finished plus 13, so he couldn't get anything going on the weekend. Finished dead last out of everybody that made the cut. But some other big names, Finau, Ludwig, Hovland, all missing the cut last week, in addition to some others. So there were some landmines out there, but it was still a fun week of golf. Anything else before we move ahead to the Valspar?
Are you changing your what did you take over under 2.5 wins for Scheffler? And are you changing your pick now that he's not playing so well?
I don't remember. I know I said it was a good line. I can't remember whether I said over or under. Yeah, Rory's played the better golf this year, and all of a sudden Scheffler's just kind of ho-humming T15s, T18s, T20s, but that's not the first, seconds, and thirds that we're used to. I mean, recency bias is going to tell everybody to take the under, but then if he goes through a stretch, you could easily go through a stretch in the spring and summer where he wins, 3 out of 5 tournaments or something like that. So I would say you're probably feeling pretty good if you're on the under on that number right now, but anything can happen if he turns it on. And, it's just weird because it's not like he's that far off. He's not finishing 50th, but we're just not used to seeing him in that 15 to 20 range. We're used to seeing him in that top 5 range every week.
Yeah, so he's almost a full stroke worse tee to green this year than he was last year, which obviously last year seems like it couldn't be sustained because he gained 2.4 strokes per round. The next closest was Xander at 1.4, which is just unheard of, Tiger-like numbers. So this year he's second in tee to green, gaining 1.68, so still pretty good numbers, better than anyone else did last year. But Morikawa is leading the way in strokes gained tee to green. He can't find the winner's circle either. Just kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely interesting and something to watch as we move forward here, heading into the kind of heart of golf season. Obviously, the Masters is only a few weeks away, but this is kind of a week where we've had a bunch of elevated events here, plus the Players. The Florida swing is rounding out this week, and the poor Valspar tends to get the short end of the stick when it comes to field strength. It's not the greatest looking lineup. It's not fall swing or John Deere Classic type of field, but not the strongest field this week, the week after a quote unquote semi-major. It's just one of those weeks that, I don't know, everybody kind of feels a letdown factor, I think, after a major and after the Players as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a letdown, but for those of you who used to celebrate, this used to be Paul Casey week. Used to dominate this event every year. He was always a guy that I just had way too much exposure to in DFS in every tournament. So I always like this tournament because this is the one that you could actually win. But yeah, it should be a fun test. It's at least difficult, which I always like to see. It's been in the top 10 in difficulty through the last 5 years. It's usually a little bit more difficult than the Players on terms of score to par. And man, if you've seen the forecast for Thursday and Friday, it looks like it's going to be very windy. Obviously, a lot can change over the next 36 hours, whatever it may be, until lock. But right now, it's looking like there's going to be a big wave advantage. The AM, PM, the AM's better on Thursday, and then the PM's better on Friday. So it could be a week where you want to make some stacks, especially with the AM, PM group. But yeah, the course, it's very narrow fairways, very small greens. It's a lot of dog legs, so it's not your typical Florida course, and then it's tree-lined fairways. There's some elevation changes as well. It kind of has more of a North Carolina feel to it, South Carolina feel to it than a Florida feel to it, and a lot of less than driver holes. So the average driving distance here was less than 280 yards last year, which is bottom 5 in terms of driving distance average. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of importance on iron play, around the green play, bogey avoidance. The greens here, they are Bermuda, but they're overseeded with POA, Trivialist. So if you want to look at those splits, you can. And then a lot of mid and long irons just because the course is long, and then you're going to have a lot of less than driver holes. That's pretty much it for me. Are you looking at anything else this week?
I had a thought in mind, and I got distracted when you said POA, whatever that made-up word was after it.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, but
it's certainly just a made-up word. It's just it's grass, but they got to make it sound fancy. I can't even remember. I had a very clear thought that I was going to convey right after you got done, and I've completely lost it. It'll come back to me at some point, but just the nature of this course being a par 71 with 5 par 3s, definitely a course where, especially if you're clubbing down a little bit off the tee, the long irons are super important. So that 150, 175, 200 yard range becomes pretty key here. You guys who can grind out pars and score well on the par 3s with 5 of them, because the par 5s are no pushover here. In fact, I think if you look at all the courses that have 4 par 5s, the aggregate scoring on the 4 par 5s here is among the hardest. So not pushovers in terms of these guys can just overpower the par 5s. Noto mentioned this course tends to play even more difficult than the one we saw last week. and the wave advantage. That's what I was getting at. The wave advantage, I am fully leaning into it at this moment. It looks like the wind is really going to pick up midday on Thursday and then die down midday on Friday. So that Thursday PM, Friday AM wave does look significantly worse right now. I very rarely make that determination as of the time that we're taping this show. So we'll see. But a lot of my picks are going to lean into hey, this guy has the AM tee time on Thursday, and so I like him better than this other guy. If that ends up not being the case this week, it's probably going to be a rough week for me, but I would imagine when Roth's forecast comes out, it's going to jive with that because it looks pretty clear based on what we can see for the early data if you look at the wind predicting sites. So, yeah, I think I'm going to lean into that this week.
Yeah, I think I am too. I mean, even if it ends up being, a stroke and a half, that still could be the difference between your guy making and missing the cut. But if it holds the way it is right now, I mean, that's going to be probably more than that. And I mean, the worst case scenario is if it gets like delayed, and then, well, even then, looks like Saturday morning is great. So, yeah, even if there's a delay with rain on Thursday, then our guys will still get the better of it. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think single entry stuff, you're going to get a lot of higher ownership on the AM, PM guys, especially in high dollar contests. But for the large field stuff, it just nobody seems to react the way they should. Not nobody, but not enough people do. So I think there's going to be a big advantage this week if you're playing MME.
Either that or we react too much. But it's been a long time since I've really leaned into there being a significant enough advantage to make a huge difference. And I think this is going to be one of those weeks. But, of course, we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, let's go ahead and dig in here. We've got 4 golfers above 10K on DraftKings this week. And a lot of the guys are going to look overpriced if they also played last week because the field strength is so much different. So, for example, Straka at 10K is going to be sticker shock for a lot of people, but Fleetwood at 10.3, Xander at 10.5, and Justin Thomas at 10.8. Looked like Xander might be finding something last week, and then that, plus 13 on the weekend or whatever he shot. There's no way I'm doing 10.5 with Xander right now until he shows us something that hasn't burned me yet. So Xander is out. That leaves you with Thomas. That leaves you with Fleetwood. That leaves you with Straka. Thomas is the only one of those 3 that looks to be on the bad side of the weather draw. So that leaves me with Fleetwood and Straka. And I'm going to go with Noto's boy Fleetwood this week. Really good history here. Just keeps reeling off top 25s. Eventually that win's going to come. But would imagine that you're going to take the same path. But how are you handling the 10K plus this week?
Yeah, Fleetwood's my favorite by quite a wide margin. I do like JT, but again, he's on the wrong side of the wave draw. I guess if there's anybody that does tend to play better in the bad conditions, it's JT. So, maybe he can come out of the wrong side at lower ownership. We'll see how, ownership goes the next couple of days. But I do think most people are going to gravitate towards the other 3. Fleetwood's still my favorite. Good course history. Probably should have won here in 2023. But yeah, he's been great. He's finished top 25 in every event so far this year. He's top 3 in this field: strokes gained Florida, strokes gained on difficult courses, strokes gained on less than driver courses. Just a guy that tends to play well in any condition, especially when it's a difficult golf course. So I like Fleetwood. I don't know what to do with Straka. I keep fading him. I think I played him the 1 week he missed the cut, and then faded him the last 3 weeks, all top 15 finishes. So I don't know what to do there, but I like Fleetwood a lot, and then going to be fading Xander as well.
Yeah, Xander's just got to show us something before show us some consistent rounds at least. So Fleetwood is the choice for me as well. I'm neutral on Straka. I'm fine with him. I've played him a little bit here and there. Be a little bit better than Noto's model does, but still Fleetwood looks like the play for me. And I'm okay with, even though I said I'm going, leaning into the weather advantage this week, I still think you can sprinkle in a few guys that look like they might be in the bad part of the weather draw. So, if you want to play Thomas, certainly don't fault you for that, especially after he really recovered from that tough first round at the Players last week with a really strong second round. And also, once we go into the next range, again, if you're going full on into that weather draw, Connors is on the bad side, Lowry's on the bad side, Zalatoris is on the bad side, Spieth is on the bad side. of the weather draw. So really in the 9Ks, you're just looking at Sam Burns, who does not have great recent stats and has had a couple of really bad rounds. But almost by default, I have tagged him this week because I don't love the other guys in this range with the weather draw. And Burns he is the all-time earnings leader at this event. So, that's got to count for something. But otherwise, I really don't love the 9s. I would like Connors and or Lowry. And I probably will keep those guys in my player pool, even though they're on the bad side of the weather draw. But you like anything in the 9s?
Yeah, I'm still going to play Lowry, even though he's on the wrong side of the draw. I mean, he's won the Open before, so we know he can play in some wind. And, I mean, once he gets through the cut, hopefully, then kind of an even playing field on the weekend. So I do like Lowry. He was T12 here in his only appearance in the last 5 years. Outside of that, I mean, yeah, the Burns course history is interesting. The recent form hasn't been great. Tom Kim gained 10 strokes on approach last week. That's certainly interesting. He finished T42 because he hasn't been able to putt this year. But he does like these shorter courses that are more second shot golf courses. He is on the right side of the draw. 9,200, don't mind him. That's pretty much it. Don't feel great about Spieth Smalley at 9K feels way too expensive. I'm hoping Zalatoris, is back. He had a tough time there on Saturday. I think he had a quad once he got up near the lead, but yeah, I'm with you. I like Lowry and Connors on the bad side, and then probably Tom Kim on the good side of the draw.
Yeah, I don't mind Kim myself there at 9.2K. Everyone always knows, I'm not going to play Spieth, so the bad draw makes him an easy X this week.
If he was on the good side, would you play him?
That's the $1 million question that we don't have to worry about. I might, simply because there's just not a lot of guys in here that are, but yeah, thankfully don't have to worry about that. I probably would get suckered into some, and then I'd feel bad about it afterwards. So thankfully don't have to worry about that. And then that takes us into the 8Ks, where Michael Kim, last week's darling at 5,900, is 8,900 despite missing the cut. Lucas Glover was in the mix last week. Poston, Taylor Moore, Clanton, Hovland not playing good golf right now. I mean, this is where the field strength sort of starts to show that it trails off a little bit. But what do you like in the upper 8s?
Yeah, so I do like going back to Michael Kim. You mentioned missed the cut on the number. He got off to a really bad start on Thursday, battled back the last 27 holes or so. So we can forgive him for that. He's been terrible at the players too. I think he only had one top 65 finish in 6 appearances at the players. And then prior to last week, he's just been so good. Tee to green, plus 8.5, plus 7, plus 6, plus 11 at the Waste Management. And this is a course where he's made his last 2 cuts. So I will be getting back on Michael Kim. The model loves Lucas Glover, but he is on the wrong side of the draw, so I'll probably keep him in the player pool and hope that his ownership comes down a little bit. In the bottom of the range, you have Adam Scott, who continues to project well for me. Did miss the cut last week. Hasn't shown a ton of upside this season. Historically, he's been very good on difficult courses, so I do think it's a good spot to get back on Adam Scott, especially if he's going to be lower owned this week. That's pretty much it for me. Can't go back to Cam Young. Don't really love the course fit for Jake Knapp, even though he's been very good recently. Benny On's been pretty bad. Do you like anybody else here?
Yeah, there's not a lot in the lower part of the 8s. I totally agree on Michael Kim, though. He's probably a key play for me this week. Even with the price bump, that form is still pretty spectacular. He's top 10 in all the ball striking tee to green metrics over the last 6 months. Glover was probably one of the first guys from the bad wave that I would include in my player pool, just because of his history here. I think he's played here 20 times, and the way he struck the ball last week. So I'm totally fine with Glover. He's probably the first or second guy in there with the Lowry, Connors that I would include in my player pool, despite being on that other side of the draw. Certainly not playing Hovland right now. Same kind of logic of, he's got to show us he can put 4 rounds together. Fine with Adam Scott on the bottom end of this range. So in terms of the 8s in total, I think we're pretty much in agreement. I like that Cam Young trolled both of us after we, in back-to-back weeks, one of us mentioned that you could sprinkle in Cam Young, and he just completely imploded and then proceeded to make the cut last week to troll us all. But
he did fall apart.
He did, but he still made the cut. He made the cut, which was far better than what he had done the previous 2 weeks. But yes, at least he didn't win or something. That would have been the epic troll move. But not much else in the lower part of the 8Ks. I think the upper part of the 7Ks fits a little bit better. And guys that, don't seem that overpriced compared to where they normally are. Quite a few guys that, again, if you're playing the weather angle, are on the right side of it as we get to the upper sevens. I'll let you have first crack at that.
Yeah, so I do like Ben Griffin quite a bit. I think it's a good course fit for him. Didn't miss the cut last week, but prior to that, had been in really good form. A couple top 5 finishes. 2 for 2 here with the top 20. He's on the wrong side, but I think he can overcome that, hopefully. Outside of that, I don't have a ton. I like Seabez at 7,600. He hasn't been great. His iron play has been really bad this year, but he does have an elite short game. He tends to play these shorter Bermuda courses a little bit better. Top 10 here last year. One of the better tee to green guys in the field is Kurt Kitayama. He hasn't been able to do much with it this year. I don't think he has a top 30 yet. But I don't know. I mean, the ball striking and the around the green numbers have been good, so I'll probably go back to him at 7,600. And then I'll save the rest for you.
Yeah, Kitayama was one that made me scratch my head a little bit too, but I'm fine with guys like Seabez and Mitchell in this range. Again, I think they're both on the right side of the draw. I looked up a lot of these before the show and had them committed to memory, but I start to lose it a little bit in this range. Rasmus Højgaard was another kind of dart throw that I pulled, and the stats are pretty ugly, but he's been pretty good in the weaker field events. He's been a little overmatched in the stronger field events, but for GPPs, I think Højgaard at 7,500 is somebody that I'm happily going to include in my GPP pool this week. I used to be a Bud Cauley guy. If we go back to before his accident, before his injuries, it was nice to see him in the mix last week. I worry about, he faded a bit on Sunday, but it's not like he shot an 80 or anything like that. He was okay. If he was on the right side of the draw, I'd definitely play him this week, but I think I will pass since he is in the afternoon wave paired with Bo Hostler and Sam Stevens. So some guys that could maybe be considered sleepers, but they're all kind of on the bad side of the draw. So Højgaard, Keith Mitchell, your take on Griffin, I think is pretty solid as well. Jaeger, I think, is another guy that if you're playing that AM wave, Jaeger looks to have the most ownership of the group right now.
Any take on Rasmus Nørgaard Peterson?
Man, all these guys with Højgaard and Nørgaard and Moeller, I mean, Nørgaard, all these, yeah. I'm going to get them super confused if they all keep playing on the, yeah. So Nørgaard was on my short list until I saw that he's in like one of the last groups on Thursday. So that would potentially be in the grand worst of the wind if the forecast holds. So I don't mind it, but I think I'm out with the tee time.
Yeah, he's been pretty awesome. I mean, T2, T8, T10, and then a couple of runner-ups at one on the DP World Tour, one in Puerto Rico. So a guy with a ton of talent. But yeah, wrong side of the draw. So I don't know what to do with him yet. Maybe keep him in my MME player pool. Yeah,
if you're building like 20 plus lineups, I think you throw him in some for sure. If you're just building one lineup or 3 max or something like that, probably not worth it just yet, unless the tee time advantage looks to be less than it is right now. Not to keep harping on that, but again, do think it's a factor this week. So, all right, let's move into the lower part of the 7K range. I see that two people, Noto and Hondizzle have a tag on Billy Horschel this week, so I'll let you talk about him. Last week's failure, Doug Gim, my boy Harry Hall, recent winner Joe Highsmith in the lower part of the 7K range. So some names in here. What are you liking down there?
Speaking of names, Kevin Roy, my guy on the right side of the draw, 7,100.
Right. I tagged him.
Yeah, okay, double tag, nice. T12 here last year. I mean, his stats, you should take him with a grain of salt because he hasn't played a whole lot. I think he's played like 6 PGA Tour events over the last 18 months. But the irons have always been good. We've been talking about this guy forever with the good irons. And now the rest of his game's kind of following along. So I'll take some chances on him at 7,100. I do like Billy Horschel. It's not necessarily a usual Florida course, but he's been good here. T12 here last year. Made the cut last week at the Players. I'll raise you Erasmus with the Nikolai. I think Nikolai is a little bit my preferred Højgaard this week, but both of them are viable. Anytime you get some brother rivalry in the field, maybe it'll push him to play better. He's on the right side of the draw. And then, I don't know. This does feel like a better Harry Hall course than some of the ones we've seen recently. You have Johnny Vegas down here, good iron player. I don't have a ton of strong takes on guys, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I
getting some feedback from you. Try talking again. Okay. All right, so we'll keep it going. If Justin gets back, that's great. Just got a message from Steve. All right, are you back?
Do I sound okay?
Oh, yeah, much better than you did for 10 seconds there.
I don't know why it does that. Like once every couple of months, my microphone randomly goes into robot mode. Nothing on my end that sounds abnormal. It used to always be when I would open up the YouTube chat, it would happen, which I did not just do. So I don't know. Oh, it sounded like gunfire. Steve said this time. Yeah,
it was
shooting a Western nearby. I don't know.
Yeah.
My apologies for the gunfire robo mode, whatever my mic decided to do for a second. Anyway, the Kevin Yu, it's not really a Bombers course, but he's been okay. He's on the good side of the draw, so he fits my player pool this week too. Otherwise, I think you covered everything above 7K.
Yeah, I like Rico Hoey, good ball striker down there. That's pretty much it in the sevens for me.
Yeah, I was kind of scrolling through to look at guys that have decent course history in this range. There's only one player from 7K to 7,600 that has made the cut here each of the last 4 years. And it's probably one of the last guys I would have guessed on this course, but it's Joseph Bramlett. So if that does anything for you, he's made the cut here the last 4 years with 4 progressively better finishes. Probably not doing it for me this week. But he is in like the second group out on Thursday, and Rico Hoey's in the very first group out. So if you're banking on the wind getting worse throughout the day on Thursday, those couple guys in the first groups, you could do worse than, somebody throwing a dart on somebody like Bramlett. So I'll throw his name into the mix there as well. And then we start to go into the sixes. Danny Walker getting some love after a pretty good performance. Andrew Putnam, I believe, is on the right side of the draw, but with this being a weaker field, it's not like last week where there was guys in the punt range that screamed good value. But anything in the sixes that's standing out to you?
Danny Walker, easy guy to root for. I guess he was working at a restaurant on like New Year's and then decided he was going to give one more go. He was about ready to quit golf. Only got into the field because Jason Day withdrew there right before the tournament started. Then ended up parlaying it. I think he won like 800,000, something like that. So
it's pretty good last minute switch.
So hopefully he doesn't have to wait too many tables anymore. I do like the Bramlett call coming off the third place finish in Puerto Rico. And it tends to play the difficult course as well that demand a little bit more tee to green. Other guys I like Mac Meisner, made the cut here last year, made the cut last week at the Players. I like KH Lee. He tends to play the same course as well every year. He's got 3 straight top 30s here. He's only 6,200. Andrew Putnam always rates out well for me, but his game's kind of been hit or miss recently.
I don't mind Putnam on a grinding course. I think Putnam's okay here.
Same. Eric Cole, 6,800. I mean, I was paying a lot for this guy not too long ago. I might have to play a little bit of him on the right side of the draw.
Yeah, don't know if I'm going to go there this week, but I probably won't have a ton of exposure. Like the only guy I'm probably playing above 10K is Fleetwood, so don't need to go super deep into the bag of tricks down here this week. Schmid was another guy I maybe wanted to look at, but Meissner I think is okay, but probably not going super deep into the sixes this week myself. Anybody else? Anybody we've missed?
I think that's it for me. Got 30 minutes out of it.
Yeah, that's where we're going to stop tonight. Normally we try to do a snake draft here, but this tournament is pretty weak, and I have to dart to a track meet. So I've got a freshman in high school that's running track, and the meets are just all over the place. They're like 8 hours long on the weekends, and he runs like 2 events. So it's like back and forth. And tonight is their first midweek meet, and originally he was supposed to run earlier, so we were going to push the show back. I ended up playing do-si-do with it, and we moved the show back to the normal time. So thanks to Steve and Noto for bearing with me on that. And now I got to go watch him run 800 meter and a relay here in a little bit. So we're going to cut it off here for tonight. As always, thanks to Steve for producing. Good luck to his Tar Heels tonight. Thanks to Noto for joining me. And thanks to all of you. Hit that thumbs up button on the YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that very much. And we'll be back next week. Same time, same place with the Houston Open and then the Valero and then the Masters. So just 3 or 4 weeks away here, depending on how you look at it. If you're counting this week, it's 4 weeks away. If you're looking the next week, it's 3 weeks away. But it's getting closer, however you want to slice it. So for Noto, for Steve, I'm Justin. Have a great week, everybody. We'll catch you later.